Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the NECA Gargoyles Thailog Ultimate Action Figure. Thailog is Goliath's clone in the Gargoyles TV show. Goliath sort of looked at him as his son, although I'd almost consider him more of a brother. Of course, Goliath invites him to join his clan, but Thailog decides to be evil. He's always after money. He's learned from David Xanatos, who had him created. I bought my figure from Leonore Collectibles, and it arrived today. I'm not sure why some specialty stores seem to have this guy. Not very many shops have him yet, but I imagine he'll be easier to get than Goliath. He's a little bit less of a desirable character. Now, Demona was supposed to be the second figure in line. Some kind of issue with here, apparently. They pushed Thailog, the third release, up next. Now, I can understand why they'd go with Thailog. It's a simple repaint of Goliath, which is a little bit disappointing. But at the same time, it's really cool to finally have a villain for him to fight against. This is Thailog for his first appearance in Double Jeopardy. He looks a little bit different later and gets armor, but this is the more basic version. So let's check out the package. As you can see, Gargoyles Thailog Ultimate Action Figure. Here's Thailog posed up on, guess what? A gargoyle. The top, Gargoyles Thailog. One side, got Thailog posed up, looking kind of maniacal. Other side, here he is, smiling up to no good. The back, Thailog in a bunch of different poses, on a building, firing his flare gun, looking at his case of money. The bottom, got a bunch of credits. There is a barcode, in case that helps anybody. This is one of NECA's ultimate figures. Window box packaging, you can hear the Velcro as you open it. On the inside flap, got Thailog posed up here, and here's Thailog in the package. Looks like it comes with a bunch of alternate hands, removable tail, removable wings, case of money, flare gun, and a large flare to come out of it. So no further ado, let's open him up. Alright, now that I got this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out. He does come with 3 alternate hands, totaling 5 interchangeable hands, a flare gun, a very long flare blast accessory, removable tail and wings, and a briefcase full of money. But before we look at the accessories, let's talk about and check out the actual figure. So this is Thailog. He's Goliath's clone. He was created by Anton Savarias and paid for by David Xanatos. Instead of being a noble creature like most gargoyles, he's even worse than Demona. He's a selfish, conniving son of a bitch, and he learned from the best, David Xanatos. This is exactly the same mold as Goliath, which is a little bit disappointing, although it's screen accurate to his first appearance in Double Jeopardy. He later appeared with a bunch of armor on him, so you know we're getting another Thailog if the line continues. Being that he's the same sculpt, he's going to share all the same flaws as Goliath. Goliath is a magnificent figure, but he has some problems. Mainly I'd say it's the wings. The wings are way too heavy. Mine have gotten a little bit loose over time, and they're way too big. They're gorgeous, but he only really works when he's outside. Doesn't really work very good for an indoor gargoyle. His head also looks down a little bit more than I'd like. Beyond that, the figure is top-notch and fantastic. So let's take a look. Goliath with a different skin and hair pigmentation. His face looks kind of evil. Got fangs out, red eyes, white hair, sort of flat top, that signature Goliath look. Long flowing hair, a little bit of black and blue inside of there. Very muscular body. I like how they went with sort of semi-animated with a realistic twist added to it. It's going to allow it to fit in with a lot more of my collection. Double jointed elbows, single jointed knees, this blue loincloth type thing. His feet. This is how his tail is going to connect. Figure looks great. Unfortunately, it's a little more of the same. Exactly what we already got, but I'm happy to add another character to the list. And just a closer look at his face and head sculpt. It's different than Goliath. Not even this angry head. You can see his fangs, red eyes, white hair. It all looks pretty good. And then, here's the figure broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. Now let's take a look at his accessories, and let's start off with his hands. He's got a total of 5 hands, 3 right hands and 2 left hands. Here he is with his first pair of hands. These are some open, outstretched. They could be grabbing, throwing, choking, or even climbing hands. Here's his next pair of hands. These are his fists. And he has one additional right hand. This is a gripping hand, presumably for his flare gun or his briefcase. Now let's look at his tail. It is very long, has kind of a rubbery exterior and a bendy wire on the inside. At the base here, it does have some articulation. You can see the peg that goes in, and it's going to be hinged as well. As we go further back, it does have some little holes here. That's going to be the bottom, and it comes to a nice little tip. Here's Thailog without the tail. You can see how it's going to attach on the back. And here's the tail attached. It's going to be able to rotate around, also hinged. Now the best thing about the tail, it's going to really help with stability standing this guy up. Now let's look at his wings. They are large, very wide, exactly the same as Goliath's, but colored a little bit differently. You can see the texturing here, looks very leathery. Got a little talon at the top. It's going to have articulation, hinge, and rotation. Blue on the inside. Here's Thailog without his wings. And then here, with his wings attached. They are magnificent. Such a wide wingspan. Very impressive looking figure. Only problem, they are too big. Now, I know Goliath is going to get some alternate wings with Bronx, but is Thailog going to get some alternate wings? Maybe the armored version will have some alternate wings. You can switch between these two guys. It just sort of is so big that you can't have him next to any other action figures. You can't have him inside. This is great for a rooftop, beautiful pose, but it's only good for an outdoor type thing. Now, his wings can be in several different positions. I consider this to be the most standard. They could be up, maybe looking a little bit more aggressive, but it forces his head to look down when you do this. You can kind of push them down, but on the back, they're kind of scraping against each other. Gotta be delicate when you do this. You can also use the hinge and kind of push the wings back. Now I've got a big feeling of deja vu here. The wings are nice and tight right now. They stay in place, but I can tell it's going to be exactly the same as Goliath. Over time, using them, the weight of them on display, they're going to get looser. My Goliath still works okay, but it's heading down a bad path. Now let's look at his flare gun and blast effect. The flare gun looks pretty good. Nice amount of detail on the handle there. You can see the trigger. It's got this flare here, and it is removable. You can pull that off and exchange it with that blast effect. This blast effect, this thing is crazy. You can see where it's going to hold in there, where it's firing out of the gun. Then it's got smoke around this sort of pole here. Goes to the top. One thing I don't really like, you can see where the different layers, kind of the plastic overlaps. You can see that line. I don't like that. Now I'm very skeptical he's going to be able to hold his flare gun and this long, heavy effect, but we'll see. Here's Thailog holding the flare gun. Here's Thailog launching the flare. That thing is really heavy. It works, but you have to be in some pretty specific poses for it to work right. It is a very nice blast effect. Very long, very detailed. Now let's look at his briefcase. This was featured in the episode Double Jeopardy. In that episode, Xanatos had Anton Sevarius make Thailog. Thailog learned from Xanatos quickly. He ended up staging that Anton Sevarius had kidnapped him, ransomed him for $20 million. Xanatos went and paid it, but it turned out Thailog was behind everything, and his whole goal was to steal the $20 million. So we have this briefcase. It's hinged. Open it up. Full of cash and a set of keys. I can find a ton of uses for this in my action figure collection. Here's Thailog holding the briefcase, and to tell you the truth, he does not hold it very well. But the best I can get right here, I could put his index finger under it by itself. These two fingers are connected. I tried, I just could not fit them in there. This top part's pretty small. Looks like it could break if I really force it too hard. So, this is the best I could get out of it. Now to talk about his feet. The proper way for a gargoyle to stand up is like so. Their talons are not touching the ground. Now if it weren't for his tail, it'd be a very tough balancing act to get him to stand like this, especially with the wings. But with his tail here, just make sure he's sort of leaning back a little bit, and he'll stand just fine. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and his accessories, Now let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his head, standing at about 8.2 inches tall, which is going to translate to about 21 centimeters. And now let's measure his wingspan. From one side to the other, about 21 inches wide. Now let's look at his articulation. Starting with his head here. Of course, it can rotate from side to side. It can look up and down about that much. It can tilt his head from one side to the other. Give him a good amount of personality. Shoulders on a ball joint goes up about 90 degrees. Up, down, around, all that good stuff. Bicep cut below that. Double jointed elbows. Really only going this far because his bicep is so big it's kind of blocking it from going in further. A little bit more. His wrist can rotate and it's going to be hinged as well. Double ball joint in his torso area. His torso rotates around, goes forward and back. His waist can also rotate around, go forward and back. Give him a decent amount of range of motion in his torso. Legs does splits. Ball joints, they can rotate independently of the ball. Forward, about that far. Back, not very much. Single jointed knees, they go back considerably more than 90 degrees though. Rotation as well. His ankle here, forward and back. Tilt and rock. And then sort of his knuckles here, forward and back. Can tilt just a little bit. Then his tail, got a bendy wire. Bend it pretty much any direction you want. Can rotate, hinged. Then his wings, they can rotate up and down. They're also hinged. I don't like that sound. It feels like I break him every time, but it helps lock him into place. Here's Thailog, perched on top of a castle. Here's Thailog climbing up a brick wall. Then, here's Thailog perched on top of a rooftop overlooking Manhattan. And here's Thailog picking a fight with Goliath. And the tides have turned. Now they have to team up and take out Xanatos's Steel Clan. Now let's check him out. Next to some different castle-type dioramas. Behind him are two Mezco 112 Collective Frankenstein doorways and one Mezco Silent Screamers giant golem doorway. They were pretty nice for a castle-type background. Here he is in front of the actual castle wyvern. This is from the old-school Kenner Gargoyles line. Then, in front of the Mattel 6-inch scale He-Man Masters of the Universe Castle's Grayskull. And now, inside of an Extreme Sets 1/12 scale cardboard pop-up dungeon diorama. Now let's check them out, next to some other action figures, starting off with some other Gargoyles figures. Here's Thailog next to Goliath. This is about as close as you can get them to stand next to each other because of that giant wingspan. So far, these are the only two Gargoyle figures that NECA has made. We're aware of Demona, Bronx, and Hudson. I'm thinking Bronx is the next one. We've seen him in package. Seems to be some holdup on Demona. I can't wait for some more reveals. Like I said, they're going to reveal a bunch of figures at Toy Fair next month. Boy, is my Goliath struggling with his wings. His left wing in particular is extremely loose. It's hard to get it to stay up properly. Pretty disappointing. The figures are gorgeous, but there are some issues with the execution. And unfortunately, I can feel my Thailog's left wing starting to do the exact same thing already. Now let's check him out. Next is another winged or gargoyle type of creatures. Here he is with NECA's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series Wingnut. And here he is next to the NECA Bat Gremlin. Then, next to a Mattel Bat Creature from Batman vs. Superman. Here are a whole bunch of different Batman Rogue Man-Bat figures next to Thailog. These guys work for some makeshift gargoyles until NECA gives us some more. Here's Thailog next to a couple of McFarlane Fortnite gliders. We have the Frostworm and the Lava Wing. Kinda gargoyle-esque. Here's Thailog next to a couple of actual gargoyles. Then, next to a couple of McFarlane DC Multiverse Batman and Hellbat armor figures. These guys kind of remind me of Xanatos's Steel Clan from the show. And I am certain NECA will give us some Steel Clan robots in the near future. And here, next to a couple of McFarlane Witcher figures, I thought these guys were good for some old school medieval gargoyle hunter type characters. Now let's check them out. Next is some action figures from different various companies to see how he fits in, both scale and style wise, in case you don't know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a NECA figure, they're typically the 7-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the larger action figure lines I collect and work way smaller. Here he is with some of his NECA brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figures, all from NECA Toys, all sort of larger than usual NECA figures, most of which are creatures. Then, next to some regular NECA figures. And now, next to some Jakks-specific wrestling figures. And here he is, next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. Then, next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. And here he is, next to some McFarlane toys. Then, next to some Mattel wrestling figures. And now, next to some Jazzwares AEW wrestling figures. Then, next to some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse figures. And here, next to some Mafex figures. Then, next to some Hasbro Marvel Legends. And here he is, next to some SH Figure Arts action figures. And finally, here he is, next to some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. Overall, Thalag is a fantastic figure. He is gorgeous, he's massive, he's intimidating, magnificent if I may say so. But he's not without his flaws. First of all, his head always seems to be kind of looking down. His hair doesn't have enough slack to kind of make it look up the way you'd want it to. His wings are definitely the biggest problem. First of all, they're far too big. They're gorgeous, made of this hard plastic. A little surprised they weren't a little more rubbery or leathery. Way too wide to actually put him interact with other figures. And they're already getting loose. My Goliath is struggling and suffering very bad from a loose left wing. He also has a loose right wrist. Thalag here, his wings are okay right now. His left one is already struggling. His right ankle is struggling. And how you're supposed to stand them on top of sort of their toes. And weak ankle is definitely hurting this guy. So I love these figures. I love that NECA's doing them. I would buy them even if I knew they were going to break in every single part and I had to glue them together. I love gargoyles so much. But their execution leaves a little bit to be desired, especially the wings. Even when I get some different wings for Goliath, are they going to be loose? Has the hole already been warped? A little frustrating to say the least. Looking really forward to the rest of the figures. Looking really forward to some new reveals. Fingers crossed that we see a Cold Stone in the near future. He's one of my favorite characters. If I were to rate this guy, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. And honestly, I would love to give him more than that, but there's just a few things that are holding him back, and I feel like they're going to get worse over time. I also would prefer the armored version of Thalag. He had, I think, 3 appearances like that, and only 1 like this. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything to say about the video, add it to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.